Continuing on with the Clone Wars in the Ahsoka trained Saw arc, I hopped on over to the next episode on the list, Season 5, Episode 3, Front Runners. As we know from the previous episode, Anakin, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Rex have traveled to Onderon to help train the insurgents, rebels, or whatever you want to call them, to fight the Separatists occupying their world. The opening sequence was great, setting up the episode by showing the insurgents attacking targets of opportunity, disabling Separatist big guns, taking out small groups of troops, kinda in and out operations. After one of the attacks, Steela Gerrera, sister of Saw Gerrera, turns to Anakin and says that should get King Rash's attention. There's a great little moment between the previous king, the prior king, the king that Rash usurped power from, and you can see a little bit of fear bubbling up in Rash's brain. The terrorists, the rebels, are inching closer and closer to him. They attacked one of the royal carriages, I believe. Rash wants these attacks to stop, so he's telling the previous king to order the terrorists to stand down. And obviously, this is out of that king's control. He's not responsible for this. He's kind of a scapegoat. He tells the now King Rash that he allowed the droid occupation, that it's his fault, that Rash has submitted to the Separatists. The previous king, whose name is Dendup, tells him that he, and only he, can end the violence by ending the droid occupation. Now Rash seems to be a scared little shit, blaming others for what he's created, not taking responsibility, not seeing what's right in front of him, thirsting for power so much that he has forgotten his people. And they were never really his people to begin with. We cut to Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and crew meeting at a safe house to discuss the attacks. And the people, the citizens, are fearful, says Obi-Wan. It seems like half of the insurgents, the rebels, are worried about public perception and understand that if the people are scared, they will not be greeted as liberators. If the people view them as opportunistic terrorists, or if they accidentally kill or injure a civilian during one of these operations, then their cause will no doubt be lost. If they were to accidentally kill a civilian, the king could capitalize on that opportunity to paint the rebels as just bloodthirsty and careless terrorists. And the king could also propagandize their mistakes, spin their actions as attacks on the people, which, if I had to guess, that's where this episode is going. Maybe. I mean, it would make for an interesting episode. It would make for an interesting twist. I really like those real world comparisons, as you guys know. So the rebels kind of have to toe a fine line. They have to be quiet, discreet, and most importantly, they have to be safe. But they also must make their presence loud, known, and definitive. So Lux has the idea of taking out the city's main power station. This would prevent the droids from recharging, and slowly but surely they would just decay and die without a jolt of energy. This next bit feels a little wonky to me. I don't know if it'll make sense down the line, but so Saul jumps down, rips the head off of a battle droid, and uses it for intel about the attack. And they see that the defenses are too heavy, and they can't directly assault the power station. They think it would be too risky. So they come up with a plan to annoy or harass or attack the droids. So they will call in reinforcements, and when the reinforcements come, they can hijack a tank and blow up the power station. Are they planning on doing this away from the power station? Or right at the power station? I paused this episode to write this a little bit, so I'm not too sure exactly where this is going. I mean, if they're going to do it away from the power station, I guess it makes sense, maybe. I mean, this seems like an operation where stealth would be your friend, but whatever. And they're just hoping they send a tank in? And if they're gonna do it near the power station, they're going to try to provoke reinforcements when they already said the Separatists have a presence that's too large? Well, all of this makes sense to me in a couple seconds, because right now the plan sounds goofy as hell. I paused the episode once again to write this, so the plan works out, obviously. They ambush the droid patrol away from the power station. And after a single wave of droidekas are sent and ultimately destroyed, they send a tank, and the rebels take it over. And it works out. But I have to be honest here, when I saw the droidekas, I actually got excited that the Separatists didn't send a tank. I thought this was gonna be a lesson in not putting all your eggs in one basket, or a lesson in not relying on the incompetence of your enemy to play right into your hand. I don't like to play the what if game too much, or the how it should have been or how I wish it would have gone game too much, but I think this would have been really interesting if the plan failed, and the crew had to adapt. maybe butted heads about the next step and figuring out what to do. I think that would have been really interesting. That being said, I really like the dynamic between this entire crew. They play off of each other really well, they give one another a hard time, a little banter, some friendly jabs, and they seem to click and work well together. They're fun to watch. So the rebel crew begins to assault the power plant, covering fire, sniper fire, the tanks fire. Everyone has their own role. As soon as the operation is complete, the rebels don't stick around, they bolt, they jet. But what I like most of all about this entire sequence is what the king says when the camera cuts to him. His helper or handler or whatever he is says, "My lord, without power the droids will be massacred." And then the king replies with, "This loss will work for us." And I think what I said earlier about the people, the civilians being turned against the rebels by the king, will come true. If this is the case, I love it. There is never a scenario in war where the people don't feel it too. Operations to knock out power grids have been conducted in countless conflicts, and it's not just the enemy combatants that feel it, it's primarily the civilian population that feels it. Because enemy combatants have contingencies for power loss, and they might not necessarily need electrical power to operate any of their basic equipment or food supplies even. But when a city's power grid is taken offline, the vast majority of people occupying that city are non-combatants. Therefore, those who suffer are disproportionately the civilians. And if the king in this episode uses the attacks to his advantage and tells his people to be fearful of these faceless terrorists, it would be a smart play and an interesting way for the show to turn. But in the next scene we see civilians cheering, so who knows where this is going. The rebels, during a little after-action celebration, talk about how they have to earn the trust of the people, how if they keep disrupting their lives, it won't play into their favor. They seem to understand the delicate balance. There's a moment where Ahsoka notices Steela and Lux getting closer and closer. There's an attraction there. There's a hint of jealousy on Ahsoka's face, and just an overall feeling of being bummed out. Holographic Anakin tells Ahsoka to stay focused, and Ahsoka says she can't help it. Anakin replies by telling her that he understands. And Ahsoka seems a little taken aback by this, which is neat to see. Her master, someone who is meant to stay in lockstep with the teachings, understands this emotion that she's feeling, understands what she's feeling. I'm very curious if this topic will come up between them again, and if the Anakin and Padme story will be better known to Ahsoka in the future. I'm guessing that'll be the case. Maybe Anakin will confide in her at some point later down the road. We'll see. So, Dooku tells the king he's going to send a more capable general, a super tactical droid known as Kalani. And from there, the fight will probably get a lot tougher for the rebels moving forward. The episode ends with the rebels rallying behind Steela, who, as we know, is Saul's sister. Saul kind of does a childish stomp off. He takes a swig, walks away. He seems to have quite the ego. I vaguely know Saul and his history in the show and the franchise, but I don't know specifics. So I'm really excited to see what role he plays in all of this, the big picture. And speculation time here. I'm guessing he becomes the leader and maybe makes a decision that gets his sister killed. Maybe not. Maybe. Who knows? I feel like my guesses are always wrong. On to the next episode. HelloGreedo, out.